When I first started this chapter, and I realized what the verse was in Philippians, and of course it was in a different translation from the one I had memorized, but immediately I recognized what it was, and that is what I would call my life verse, okay? That I may apprehend, or that I may actually grab that for which he grabbed me. And as I look and I see all that God did to get my attention, more than get my attention, and as I said before, you know, in essence, grabbing me by the hair and pulling me out of a mud puddle, and then dusting me off and saying, okay, come on, we're going on. And yeah, okay. And then he surrounded me with some of the sweetest, nicest people on the face of the earth. And that was a lovely thing. But I realized when we first started this that this chapter was going to be different for me because it's concepts that I had lived with, because I think it is. Becoming a Woman of Purpose, this book that we just finished, I don't know, I would be interested to hear one of your praises of this thing, but I think that it is probably the most challenging study that we have ever done in 32 years. I found this very challenging. I thought she was ringing bells that very few people ring. And you don't see this kind of stuff often. And it was as serious as anything. And I looked at it, I thought, oh, wow. I think, looking back, yes, we're coming to the end of a 32-year run, which is kind of unusual to think because I'm only 35. But when we began Manna in January of 1989. And I think back of that time and what were we thinking and what are the kind of things we were talking about when we were planning to have our big opening. And I think, great Christmas, we had no idea what we were doing. We kind of thought, we had this idea that, yeah, we wanted to have like a women's ministry that had like kind of Bible things in it and all, and yeah, oh, maybe, oh, we could even throw in a retreat and have a good time. Oh, yeah, a good time, we were good at that. And we had no idea. So we thought, okay, let's offer a women's Bible study. And so we sent out a mail out to all the women in the church. And we were going to see what happened. And we thought, well, if we send this mail out, we'll possibly have maybe like a women's ministry in this church. Oh, what a thought. And so off we went. We had no idea of what God had in mind. Truthfully, I look back 32 years, and to be honest, no one knew what was going to come but God. What did happen in all those years, and all the sweet women that we got to know, and all the wonderful nights we had with so many wonderful people, only God could have done something like that. You know, we were so stupid. We thought that we could come up with this little outline and put a few little things there, and oh, we're going to do it, we're going to do it. Stupid. Something like this, you don't do it. Either God does it, or you drown. I look back and I thought about that I may apprehend that for which he apprehended me. And I was thinking about it. And I thought my whole adventure with God began when I had a major life crisis. I mean, major. And what it did was, it shook my faith. Now, I was raised in a church. I believed in God. But when my life literally fell apart and there were pieces of me all over the living room floor, my prayers seemed to be ignored by God. And when God didn't seem to do anything, my faith waxed cold. In the past, God had answered my prayers. Some of them sooner, some of them later, but God always answered. And now when I needed him the most, nothing was happening. I mean, nothing. I couldn't get arrested. I sunk into a major depression. I had nowhere to turn. My parents were 2,000 miles away. I had no one here. I didn't know anybody here. I wasn't from Pennsylvania. I just got dropped here by accident. And my husband, the principal relationship in my life, I had 3 little children. I mean, little, under 5. 3 children under 5. What does that tell you? But my husband had a complete emotional collapse, and my rock had cracked. Now what? And there I sat, 2,000 miles from home, and my faith waxed cold. I went into a major depression, but I also became angry with God. And in the middle of this mess, a friend of mine invited me to a Bible study. I thought, oh God, leave it to Gloria. A Bible study. It was the same old story. Every time I turned around, Gloria was dragging me somewhere I didn't want to go, as always. And this was exactly like the other times. I didn't want to go. She pulls up in front of the apartment. We lived in Buchanan Park, which you know where it is, okay? That's where Tom and I lived. And she pulls up, bap, bap, bap. I went. I didn't want to go. Well, same old thing, going somewhere I didn't want to go with Gloria. I only went to shut her up, okay? I was in no mood to go hunting for a deeper relationship nowhere. For God's sake, I talked to God all day and he by and large ignored me. I wasn't really too thrilled. Why was I doing this? I don't know. It was because we had a pattern, me and Gloria. She'd come, she had a thing, I wanted to shut her up, so I'd do it, okay? And this was the old pattern, man. That's all I wanted to do was to shut Gloria up. Funny how God will use anything. And here I was. Some of you know the Cricks. I arrived at the Cricks living room and walked in, and there was about 5 or 6 ladies sitting around there, sweetest people you ever saw in your life. However, you got to realize I was 27 years old, and they were considerably older. And I thought, oh God, is this boring? So, however, as the night went on, I kind of looked at them. I thought, they went around the circle, they shared their little insights, and what I found was that they had a very lovely, simple faith. It was so simple. There was nothing complicated about it. This one had a problem. We're going to take that to the Lord. And they did. And then this one over there said, oh, yes, we did that last week. And guess what happened? And they had an answer to prayer. And I'm watching all this and I'm thinking, answer to prayer, give it to the Lord. I can't get arrested. So it just made me really angrier. But as I looked around that room and I examined everyone, and the prayers that they were asking were not simple and stupid. Those women had trouble in River City, but they weren't black clouds. I was. I needed to listen, and I knew it. It was like taking an iron tonic. Weeks went by, and my crisis continued. I needed God to act on my behalf. I wanted him to get me out of the mess. But God had a bigger vision. God was calling me to become a woman who wouldn't be focused on her own purposes and her own ideas about her life. God wanted a woman who could fulfill his purposes for her. There was only one problem: I wasn't interested. So even though I continued to attend the group, my depression remained. In order to become a woman of God's purposes, we have to surrender to his will and his ways. Surrender was not something that was hot on my list. And anybody who said it to me got a mouthful. Can you imagine? Sweet little me giving somebody a mouthful. Well, I did.
You should have seen her then.
Tasty heard a few. I kept working at it. I kept thinking if I just tried hard enough, determined enough, prayed loud enough, that somehow I was going to break through and my plans would go forward, because I was focused on my plans and getting out of this, and God was focused on me. It was a slow and torturous death to self. You see, I had missed the point. God's purpose for my life was for me to become like Jesus. And my purpose was to force things to go the way I thought they should go. Does anybody relate? The result was a train wreck. Nothing was succeeding. So I decided that I know what I need. I need a new assignment. I do well when I have assignments. And I'll bet you these ladies can cook up some nice, new, interesting assignment, and I can be off and do something, because I can do. I just don't be real good. So I asked Katie, I said, Katie, would you pray for a new assignment for me? Katie smiled. I think she'd been praying for that moment. June, she said, if God called you tonight and gave you a new assignment, where would you fit it in your schedule? What did she know? All of a sudden, I pictured my day timer. Every page was filled. You couldn't put something in there if you had a shoehorn. The moment had arrived. I needed to listen. I needed to become a woman of God's purposes instead of just a never-stopping, misguided missile. June, she began, not all good things are God's thing for you. What? I was doing a lot of good things. I belonged to a lot of people, clubs and things and outreaches. We did a lot of good stuff. And here she's, starting to tell me, oh well. I thought, oh well, a hole in the ground. Not all good things are God's thing for you. Then she continued, June, the good is the enemy of the best. I thought, oh crumb, how much of this does she have? She said, June, if you'll just give God room, he'll fit in his best for you. In the meantime, June, she said, you might want to prepare and get ready. Get ready for what? She continued. June, she said, God is looking for servants who are prepared and available. Wow. No wonder I was continuously frustrated. Let's face it, I really wasn't available for an assignment from God. My schedule was tighter than Dick's hat band. And I never gave any thought to being prepared. I didn't even know how to get prepared. Where do you start? So I thought, okay, I'll just ask her. I mean, what have I got to lose? We're that far, we're deep into it. So I said, how do I prepare? Well, she said, God says that his word is food indeed. So why don't you become focused on learning how to prepare his food? Now, June, why don't you buy a little notebook and begin to write down the insights that you get during your quiet time? Okay. And then she looked at me and she said, June, if you fill your pantry with his food, God will bring others for dinner. So I bought a red flowered notebook. Boy, was it loud. And I began to collect my little insights. A few minutes each day, I'd read his word and I'd listen for his voice. And over the next few months, the notebooks began to multiply. And in due season, sure enough, God sent guests for dinner in the Word. I had been full of good works, but the good is the enemy of the best. My life was overflowing with good things, but I wasn't available for God because I was too busy. God calls us to be women of his purpose. I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord. And God speaks to those who will listen. In the very back of your books, our precious author has written her last message to us, and it's called The Father Spoke. And I thought we might read it together. And Cassie and Cindy, would you come and help as we read this together?